the things that I would advise everybody, and that we talk about, on our different groups and in the various different channels and in my online course, etc., is always to try and link your research degree with some other aspect of your life, such as a role that you have in the workplace or in any other context that will give you a good access to data that you will need to get and analyze for your degree, but will also give you an outlet for ongoing contribution throughout your PhD, because never think of a PhD as just a once-off final report at the end that you then put on the shelf and hopefully write a couple of articles about. Every day that you're grappling with this topic, every day that Yolandi is reading journal articles and talking to her supervisor and doing interviews, she's developing nuggets of insights. And we at FMB value it when people can then, the next day that they come in, apply those insights in a workshop, in a meeting with a stakeholder. So it's an ongoing, continuous improvement, very much like the lean industrial engineering disciplines that you study, Yolandi. But I would often always look for that link between the real world that you live in, and then carve out the space and the time to do a PhD and do some focused research to solve a specific problem, like Yolandi has listed just now. And what I really liked about what Yolandi's done is that she can say that statement. She's almost got it rehearsed. And as I teach in the course, in which I'll provide access to everybody just now, it's that thesis statement which really puts a box around exactly what it is that you're going to study and what you're not going to study. Because anything outside of that box is going to distract you and pull you away from your PhD, and is the single biggest cause of failure for postgraduate research students when they get pulled in different directions outside of that thesis statement. So as long as you stay within that and you are disciplined and focused, then you will be successful as a PhD student. So fantastic, Yolandi. It almost sounds like you've done my course and you applied the principles there to define a good thesis statement. And in the course, I explain how to do that. I draw it up on a whiteboard and I give you a couple of examples of how to define a good thesis statement, because that will be your golden thread. Remember, 4 years is a fairly long period of time in your life, and you need to have that as a bit of a golden thread that you weave in and through your research gathering, your literature review, your research proposal, and then ultimately your final report. There may be some deviation towards the end as a result of the variances that you pick up in your study, but broadly speaking, if you were to get into the lift with somebody, just as Yolandi has been able to answer that question, what are you researching? You need to have that thesis statement well defined there. All right. So, Yolandi, I know you've prepared. Take us through your thoughts on how to approach and be successful in a research proposal, and then we'll pick up a couple of chats from everybody watching today.
Right. Rome is not built in one day. Okay, I think that we must remember. And a PhD is not going to be written in one day. Okay, it's going to have its ups and its downs. You're going to have your challenges. Some days you're going to take 2 steps forward and it feels like you're taking 3 steps back again. But I think what's important is to know that is the journey. Okay, that's going to happen. You're going to have that. It's almost like I'm actually thinking, yes, there's so many. Almost like thinking about a tennis match. I love tennis and I like to play some tennis. And my coach used to tell me, just look after and focus at each point, and then the sets will look after themselves. And that's also what you've mentioned, as try to focus on what you're currently busy. So now I had to do my project proposal. So I focused on the requirements of a project proposal. I knew my template. I knew exactly what is required, because this is so big. You can run in different directions and then you can get lost. So know exactly what is the expectation, what is the scope, and what is the problem statement. The project proposal is probably, that's what I've heard. I have not been through the journey, but one of the most difficult documents to write. Okay? And one of the most important, because that's going to set your roadmap for the rest of this 4 years. And if you can get alignment and agreement on that, then you know what direction you're going to run into. And I'm at Picker, so Kitu. I'm at the same place where you are, and I'm there at the Industrial Engineering Department, and I've got an amazing supervisors, Dr. Ruyanet Kutsia. She's been helping me through this journey, and I need her, and I'm very grateful for her. So now, other day I watched with the kids the movie Alice in Wonderland again. Now, Peter, I'm not sure if you've watched that recently. It's a bit old, but there was one place where Alice, she was walking, and then she got to a tree, and the cat was in the tree, and then she asked him, which road do I take? And then he asked her, but that depends where you're going. And then she said, but I don't know. And he said, well, then doesn't matter which road you take, it will probably take you there. So I think it's very important in the project proposal to determine this few months where you are going, okay, and stick with that. The problem statement for me personally in my project proposal was probably the most important and also difficult component. I think myself and Rianette, we spent Fridays, we usually had on Fridays our session, Fridays and Fridays to determine the problem statement. And exactly, Pete, as you referred to the golden thread, if you do not have your problem statement clearly defined, you cannot write an aim, you cannot write an objective, and you don't know where you're going. So that's a golden thread that needs to be pulled through. You need to make sure you've got a valid problem, and you need to be able to prove it. And then right through the project proposal and through the PhD, you need to link it back to that. And the end, you need to prove that you actually solved that through your verification and validation. So that's a key critical component for me personally to get sorted out. And when we went into that discussion on project proposal, that I was lucky mine was approved, had a lot of support from Rianette. And some of the employees, they said, was not approved. But I think what's important to remember is you don't want to hear that after 4 years. You want to, if something is not right or that idea is not 100% and you need to go back to the drawing board, you want to hear it as early as possible in the process. And that is okay. It's okay. If it's not approved, then you go back to the drawing board and you work towards and you take the learnings and you try again. Now, there's something that I've mentioned it in the first session we had, and it's grit, G-R-I-T. And it's passion and perseverance. It's day in and day out. You've got a clear goal, and that's what you're striving towards every day. And it's also about a lot of growth mindset. And I think the learning out of that is that, and you need to take it out of that, is that any type of component of failure is not a permanent condition. No, it's not permanent, and we can change and we can learn out of it. Okay, I think that is crucial to remember throughout this journey. And there is something like, I'm not sure that, Pete, maybe you know the right word, positive or green criticism. Okay, that is good because otherwise it's not a PhD. I remember with me and Rianette, we would sit hours and hours up and down in these discussions. And then I said, after a while, I said, am I on the right track? She said, if we agreed on everything, this is not worth a PhD. Okay, this is not worth a PhD. We're going to struggle. We're going to argument, and then eventually, hopefully, we get alignment going forward. So that is normal. It's almost like I can't help to think about the change management curve. Now we're all excited. We're going to do this PhD, and then the graph goes down. And then they call it valley of despair. It's terrible. You're going to do it because that's when you're unsure. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. And then eventually, hopefully, you get out of it, and then you're at a better place than you were initially. But I think the big thing there is to realize that that is the curve. You're going to go up and down. You're going to go up and down, but that's okay. I remember, and I heard about STAR the other day on WhatsApp. So I started this message that Rianette sent me afterwards. We had a session, and I was like, I'm just not sure where we're going. And then she left me a message afterwards to tell me, you're okay. This is going to be okay. You're on the right track. And this is exactly what I can see where this is going, and this is okay. And I needed that at that point in time. And Renette told me she's just not here now, but she's going to listen to the recording. I'm going to need that a few more times, a few times in the year. This is okay. I remember after our sessions, we would do it in teams, and I'll record the session. And then I would be so overwhelmed. I would go outside and just sit in the sun, hope to get some vitamin D, and maybe things might just make sense in my head. And that would be what I would do afterwards. And then I thought to myself, if it doesn't make sense, maybe after a good night of sleep, it might just make sense. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you have components of it. But that is the journey that you're going to expect. And it's okay. So do not have the grit, have the passion and perseverance every day. And it's okay. A big thing is do not suffer in silence. You're going to suffer a bit from time to time. That is normal. But don't suffer in silence. No, I'm very fortunate to have an amazing mentor or a supervisor, but make use of the program and the support that Peter's team is giving, because this can get a very lonely journey.